Well, I think we do see a lot of power of attorneys, and we register them really regularly for older customers. And we think particularly relatively recently with COVID, the past 18 months. Before, I think a lot of people would only do a power of attorney as almost like a last resort. But certainly with lockdown, I think a lot of older people, more vulnerable people, have been kind of taking stock and thinking, I'm not going to go out and put myself at risk. I want to make sure that I'm shielded, I'm safe, and we're seeing a lot of power of attorneys, obviously being set up and being registered. And I think that's because people realise that, it's important to have someone appointed so that there's no disruption to your day-to-day life, to your banking, because obviously, your finances underpin everything in your life, everything from your regular bills to, going out, making sure that you have a means, if you can't go out for any reason, COVID aside, that, someone can even go to Asda for you, go and get your groceries, and having a power of attorney is the key to that. And a power of attorney can be a great big thing. It can be, your power of attorney is in place and therefore, you're ready to move into a new property or assisted living or sell your house, or it can literally be a power of attorney set up so that a trusted friend or relative can have a debit card to go and take money out for you, or to, go and do your basic everyday shop, So it does encompass everything about your life and your financial life. And we see them quite a lot, and they are very important. They're a huge part of people's day-to-day banking, particularly older people or more vulnerable people with, like a learning disability, things like that is really essential for their day-to-day life so that they can enjoy a quality of life with access to money and finances and everything really. We often see a lot of people who come in without the likes of a power of attorney or any legal instrument set up. And it's very frustrating because at the end of the day, we want to help. We don't want to leave any customer, any person without access to money for their essentials, housebound with a debit card that they can't use. Oftentimes, it's very easy for us to say, as tech literate people to say, well, I would just order my groceries online if I can't go out, or I would just order that to get delivered from Amazon. But oftentimes the people who need a power of attorney or people who are trusting relatives to go out and help them are people who are not tech literate and they're not online. So they really rely on things to be done in person. So it is really frustrating when we see that. And we always want to help. But of course, as a bank or institution, if you don't have the authority to access someone's money, to access their information, we're not allowed to disclose it. So we say, well, we'd love to help you, but we can't. And a lot of the time we say, have you thought about a power of attorney? Have you thought about calling up the solicitor and inquiring about it? It's a little bit of time and effort and some money it's going to cost, but it's kind of priceless in terms of the stress that it removes. As a bank, we're always keen to help, but we can't do that on every occasion because, of course, if you speak to me on a Monday, you could come back on the Tuesday and it's a different member of staff. And it's also the stress and distress, I think, if you're just helping out like that, it's having to explain the situation again, It's never really a pleasant thing to have to help see a loved one unable to do something and having to help, but then to go into, any bank building society, to contact whatever provider, pension provider, anybody, and have to explain again that, that they are vulnerable and that there's something wrong. That's distressing for everybody. So if they can get that authority set up, we're always keen to tell them, if you can spend some time and effort doing this, it's so much more streamlined and really, it's a lot less hassle, and it's emotionally, financially just less expense and less effort in the long run. So we would always talk about that. I think a short conversation with the bank it can go a long way, and it can really get the ball rolling to opening those things up for them and hopefully take a lot of stress out of their life, both the customer and their family member who's helping them. Before I worked for a bank or building society, I didn't know what a power of attorney was. You don't encounter them in everyday life. You're very likely not to encounter them in your personal life. So if you're in a profession whereby you are dealing with people who might have vulnerabilities, who might benefit from something like this, it's a learning curve for you as well. And no one expects you to know everything. I mean, all the kind of conversations that we have, that I know other organisations will be having, will be a friendly, quick chat. You don't have to go into it in great detail. You don't have to, explain the law. Friendly conversation, push someone, customer or a loved one towards in the direction of, a solicitor or someone who can set it up. And in that case, you can go through someone's needs specifically, and you can talk personally about it and get something that really suits you individually. So the kind of conversations that we would want to lead would just be, seek help, and don't think that by going to a solicitor that you're locked into a great big undertaking, and that you become responsible for a great deal of things, or that it's going to cost you a lot of time or effort or money. Just start a conversation with either with your loved one to say, listen, I think we might need some help, or with the solicitor to say, can you help me? This is the predicament that we're in. We need a bit of help with our housing situation, with our finances, with our personal care, and they'll tailor it to you. Now, it's a really distressing circumstance with or without one. Sometimes these events are catastrophic. It's something that just happens, or it's something that's gradual over a period of time. And it is really frustrating because in my field, in our sector, you can find yourself frozen out of your money. We have laws and policies that protect people's financial information and protect their money. But if you don't have a power of attorney or an instrument set up, those can work against you, because with all the best will in the world, we often see people who come in, sons, daughters, and siblings who have the best of intentions, and you can tell that they're only trying to help. But you can't just write off that. You have to follow the rules and follow the letter of the law, and you can find that you end up frozen out of finances. And it's meant things, for example, like not having money to pay for personal care for the person. They need new clothes, they need food, things like that, and it can be expensive. Setting up a power of attorney isn't free, but this time and expense spent setting it up, it helps you, because often we see people who have to they might have a relative who can't access their money, and they have enough money to pay for these things, but they're having to take out of their own money because they don't have access to a loved one's money that they've got by. So, and it's a distressing time. There's often people will be upset, they'll be crying because they're just trying to help, they're trying to do the right thing by their loved one, and they can't afford to, or it's causing them effort and expense. And as I said before, if someone is ill in any regard, if they're incapacitated, it's really emotional time. And to have to come into a bank or building society or any organisation and explain again what's happened to them, explain again that you're caring for them and it's really difficult and you need help, it's not pleasant. So it's a lot of emotional and financial turmoil, I think, if the worst happens and you don't have anything set up. So if you can get something organised whilst you're able to, then it's going to save a lot of time, effort, distress, and we always want to help. Every organisation will always be happy to register a power of attorney on the basis that it makes it easier for us as well. Because if someone's got an authority, we can identify them, we can see what they are and aren't allowed to do, and it makes it easier. And we don't have to, try to work around things and try to help on an ad hoc basis. We can get it organised, get the support in place from the bank, internet banking access, a debit card, anything like that. That can all be in place, ready to swing into action when need be. So with a power of attorney, it's something that's granted by a person, an individual, in favour of someone else. So keep using the parents example, because 99.9% of the time it is a parent granting a power of attorney to their son or daughter, their child. And basically, whilst they're able to, they go to the solicitor, and in accordance with the law, they basically sign to say that this person, for example, my son, my daughter, should be able to look after me in all of these ways, financial or personal, etc. And they sign, and their attorney, their son or daughter will sign, and the lawyer will sign to witness it, and it's registered, and it means that they have consented. Their consent is there, it's on paper, it's ready to go, and they don't have to use it straight away, but it's on file and it can be used. And that's something that's put in place when someone has the capacity to do it. A guardianship is often, sometimes it's a sadder case whereby somebody has lost capacity to even do that. And what we have to do in accordance with the law is go through to a sheriff court, and the individual has to be assessed to assess how capable they are, how vulnerable they are. And if the sheriff or the judge is satisfied based on all these reports that the person cannot look after their own affairs, they will appoint someone to look after them. And that person could be, similar to the example I used, a family member who has gone to the court because they're concerned or they need to do something, or in cases whereby people are being cared for, it can be an organisation. Sometimes it is workers for a housing association, sometimes it is a professional lawyer who will be paid to be the guardian. And basically that's far more legal in the sense that it goes through the court. And that's when a person doesn't have capacity. You know, sometimes it's sadder because we see it whereby someone has something, you know, kind of very acute has happened to them, and they can't manage their own affairs and they didn't have time to set up a power of attorney. Or it could be the case that someone, you know, hasn't had support, they don't have a caring relative. And it's only when outside organizations notice that they're not coping that they have to go through that. And from our end at the bank, it is the same thing. You know, when it's registered with us, the person will have the same authority. It matters not to us what kind of an order it is, but for the people involved, for the human beings, it's, I think, a very different process. I think the process of setting up a guardianship, I imagine, is more time consuming, probably more expensive, and a little bit more unpleasant. You know, nobody likes to go to court or, you know, to be assessed by a social worker or a judge or whoever. So they are, once they're in place, they work the same. You know, you can manage finances all the same with them, but the route to get there is pretty different, pretty vastly different. You know, someone had an option to set up a power of attorney before things go so, you know, so necessary to have a guardianship, then absolutely. Why not do it? Because it's going to save you a lot of time and effort. And it's probably going to be a more pleasant experience as well because everyone's involved and it's informed and consented.